Hi, my name is Myra Tanksley, and I'm recording this on June the 21st, 2018. And first of all, I am a single, proud parent of a young man with autism. He's 25 years old. His name is Marquise, and he has been a victim of government and guardian abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And our family, we are an American family, but our family continues to be separated by a very corrupt, unjust, evil, sick, racist government. And my question is, where is all the outrage for American families that have been separated with innocent parents? I'm talking about parents that are not guilty of abusing or neglecting their child or children. Where is that outrage? Because there is right now outrage actually internationally, not only across the country, but internationally there's outrage about the migrant situation here in the United States of America, where in Texas children are being separated from their parents, which shouldn't be happening. I have my own thoughts on how Trump should deal with that, but we know that children are very, very dependent on their parents, and of course parents are loved by their children, but parents also are bonded to their children. And like my son, he's 25 years old. Because of his disability, he's considered an adult child, but if he was 250 years old, that's still my child. And I still consider him, flesh of my flesh. So it doesn't matter whether somebody or a parent has a child that's 2 years old or 92 years old. That's still their son or daughter. So I have 3 Facebook pages that show that I'm not full of hot air. The people that are abusing and neglecting and exploiting my son here in Ohio is government, and a very wicked, evil, unfit lying attorney named Aaron Sanford. And I just want to make it clear, I don't call names. I'm a Christian. I just describe people, for what they are. And my son has suffered and continues to suffer ongoing abuse, neglect, exploitation. These Facebook pages are full of evidence. And I'll tell you the 3 names. I'm also going to write it down in the comment section too. But the first one is called Abuse and Neglect of Autistic Marquise Tanksley by the Government. The second one is called Justice for Autistic Marquise Tanksley. The third one is called The Audio Tapes of Marquise Tanksley, His Suffering, Abuse, and Neglect. And they're on Facebook. So on the Justice page and on the Abuse and Neglect page, you need to go from the very beginning when I first created the pages, and you can see the mountain of evidence that I have. I have recordings, I have photographs or pictures, and I also have documents that show how corrupt and unjust these people are. And I mentioned I'm a Christian, and so I get my truth from the Bible. I love reading it. I read it all the time. I read it all the way through 3 times. I'm reading it again all the way through the 4th time. And that's, God tells us what's right and wrong. So I don't have to judge anybody. It's God says so to me. And there's a lot in the Bible about injustice. And when God talks about injustice, He's not talking about the average Joe on the street or somebody in my profession. I'm in the nursing profession. He's talking about people that work in the illegal system or the legal system. They work in the courts. He's talking about judges and magistrates and court investigators and all the way down to the clerk, lawyers, and people that, like my son's limited guardian, and I'll talk to you about the guardianship. Her name is Aaron Sanford. She now works with the NILAW group here in Columbus, Ohio. She's very unfit. She lied on me 3 times. I can prove it. That's why I said I don't worry. They slander me like no tomorrow, but I'm not going to get a slander letter from nobody, because it's not slander if it's true. And I got audio tapes proving that she lied on me. I can prove that they were lies when she told them to the court. But with her, you know, she might work like in a private practice or with a group of lawyers, but she's still an agent of the government, because probate court, which is a very corrupt court, is paying her. So any of those people, you know, can be almost called an agent of the, you know, court system or the government or even the clerk of courts, because they work and get paid for the government. And they're all in concert with each other. They all scratch each other's back. I mean, I have not met one ethical person. And this has been going on for years. My son has not been allowed to see me or, you know, or see me physically in over 3 years. Why? It's not because I abused or neglected my son. I've been a registered nurse for over 31 years. But it's because I have the nerves to challenge a system and to be an outspoken advocate for my son against a system that is used to doing what they want to do. Everything is kept from the public, swept under the rug. And, you know, race has something to do with this too, and I'll get to that. I only got like 60 minutes, but, so they took my guardianship away because I challenged the system, and I was speaking out about how they were mistreating my son Marquise. That's his name if I didn't mention it. And as a African-American mother, I'm supposed to be in silent mode. I'm not supposed to say anything, you know, just hang my head down and not say anything. But I'm not intimidated by wicked, you know, a wicked government. I'm just, you know, don't have any fear of that. And I know that God is in control. I know that if he wants Marquise to come back home, he's going to bring Marquise back home, his way and his time. I know I don't really have to worry about that. But as a mother, I'm still a victim in this. Because I've always been baffled. I'm going like, well, I love my son just as much as they love their kids. And what? Is it because, you know, am I supposed to love him less? And, you know, I just been baffled by that. I said, because they wouldn't want to come in there, no parent would want to come in there and see my son the way I have seen him or heard the things that he has told me. But, you know, I could go in there and see the signs of abuse and neglect, you know, but, and my heart would be splitting in two. And see, I said, I'm going to show people what I'm seeing. Excuse me. And I got photographs. But if you go to the justice page and abuse and neglect page, go from the very beginning. They have not allowed me to see him in 3 years. Because they know that not only do I get evidence, but my son can tell me things. He's actually high functioning. He has high functioning autism. So he has some delays, but he also has verbal skills. And Marquise has told me a lot of things. So he could tell me things like when he's been assaulted and abused, how staff treats him, and it's been very abusive, unfit staff that have worked with him, that have abused him, you know. And he can also tell me, you know, just if they moving, he can tell me a lot of things, so they don't like that. And that's the reason why they like to take a guardianship away from a mother like me, because it's like, well, anything happens to him, we don't have to tell her. And so the last place I know that my son is when I last seen him. But like if he has surgery or anything, they don't have to call me and tell me about it. So they like to get that guardianship away from a mother like me. But just because somebody mistreats you or do something to you don't mean you deserve it. Because my son ain't going through what he's going through because he deserves it. As far as God is concerned. He ain't done nothing to nobody. He's disabled. He's got autism. But just because somebody mistreats you don't mean that you deserve it. That is right, a right thing for them to do. Look how they mistreated Jesus. The Bible said he was without sin. He was numbered with the transgressors. So just just because somebody take your guardianship away doesn't mean that it was the right thing to do. But when you're separating families, a God-given right, that's a God-designed family. And yes, it's supposed to be between, a man and a woman and their children. God told Adam and Eve, go ahead and be fruitful and multiply. But God designed that. He made it so that children can be, from a man and a woman. And so unless there is some type of dysfunction, some type of abuse, some type of neglect, that family should not be separated. So my son has no kind of rights. No, I mean, it's really unconstitutional. But like I said, I'm a victim in this thing too. As a mother that loves her son just as much as any other mother or father that loves their son or daughter. But it's unconstitutional. He has no civil rights. He doesn't have basic human rights. Because when he was in a state facility, the Columbus Developmental Center, that's operated from the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, that is the state agency that owns that and operates that facility. And it's probably like 6 or 7 developmental centers around Ohio. But they're actually ICF-MR facilities, which means the intermediate care facilities for the mentally retarded. And my son was mislabeled as being moderately mentally retarded, which was a lie. They mislabeled him to get him in that facility to be civilly or committed. Because I don't really want to say civilly, because actually, they mislabeled him, lied about him to commit him to that facility. He was actually illegally committed to that facility. And even a state psychologist that used to work there said Marquis should have never been committed there because he didn't have the lower level of functioning that was needed. He was actually saying he's not a bit moderately retarded, but they still went ahead. So the state of Ohio, like I said, Franklin County, Ohio, government, Aaron Sanford, all of these people have directly abused, neglected, and exploited my son. But the American government, the U.S. government, because I wrote President Obama back in 2009, I wrote him again about it, I wrote President Trump about it, I contacted federal agencies, the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, Disability Rights Ohio, hates my guts, because they don't want to go after you unless, it depends on who you are. Like they went after the school district when I made a complaint when they were throwing my son in a seclusion closet, because it was a urban school district or or a black superintendent. But when I gave them and told them about my son getting hit in the chest, that the Lord let me see, because the boy wasn't even aware that I was there. And I got it on audio tape. I'll get to that because I have a YouTube channel, and I got a lot of these recordings, on these Facebook pages too. They wouldn't even do anything about it because these people, a lot of these people are in denial. And denial to me means somebody that just cannot accept the truth. They're not denying a lie, they're denying the truth. You can have evidence, you can have proof, you can put it in front of their face, and when a person's in denial, they can't accept the truth. They will not acknowledge the truth. It's true, but they can't acknowledge it. So they'll sweep it on the rug, ignore you, call you racist or whatever. And that's why I got my Facebook pages, because I ain't full of hot air. And neither is my son. It ain't just our imagination. So like I said, with the justice and the audio, not audio tape, but the justice and abuse and neglect page, go from the very beginning. When I first created it, and you'll see all the stuff that I have had to see, when I have had to go, when I have visited my son. And I would go over there when they would allow me to visit him. And he would be so traumatized and upset because they had punched him when they were restraining him, or it was too noisy for him. And my son has verbal skills, so he was able to express these things to me. And I got it on tape. I said, because they always have told the lie that I escalate my son. I said, so when these, autistic individuals, because I'm going like, wait a minute. Now, do they say that to the white mothers and white fathers? So when their sons and daughters, because it doesn't matter whether they're teens or adults or children, I said, so when they're having meltdowns is what, they're called, or aggression, physical or verbal aggression, are they telling these white mothers and white fathers, you escalate your son or daughter? But they always have said that about me, which is a lie. I said, because Marquise, and you can hear it on the recording, I said, because he can speak for himself. And you ain't gonna never hear Marquise say, oh, Mom, get out of here, I hate you, or, because he adores me. He loves his mother, just like I love him. I mean, he adores his mother. I said, he's bitten to me, not because of me. And maybe if you didn't treat my son like an animal, then when I came over here, maybe he wouldn't be crying and screaming and so upset and begging me to take him out of that hellhole. I said, 'cause my son is treated worse than an inmate. I said, even these inmates get family visits and phone calls and stuff like that. I said, he can't even, not to see his own mother in over 3 years. That's why I said, I'm not down with the Pledge of Allegiance, with this life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and justice for all, because it's got to be for me and my son. Because like I said, I'm a victim in this too. It's not just a son not being able to see his mother. It's a mother. I haven't been able to see my son in 3 years because of some sick, evil, corrupt people in the government. In this country. And to make it even worse, they're continually abusing and neglecting and exploiting my son. And the last time that I seen Marquise was through my own efforts, because I waited outside across the street because he had told me he was leaving that day because he's going to counseling, because I filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education, and they made the Columbus City School District give him compensatory education. They said they also had to give him counseling because of where they were throwing him in a seclusion closet. And even then, I was just, because I had seen him the 3 months earlier. That's the last time Aaron Sanford let us have a visit, was March the 15th, 2015. On July the 8th, 2015, like I was saying, I waited outside across the street. That's on videotape. That happened during the daytime. You can find that videotape. It's heart-wrenching because my son begged me not to leave him. But he looked so bad. He had gained a large amount of unhealthy weight because they still have him on Thorazine. They put him on a maximum dosage of Thorazine, and they don't even prescribe Thorazine for true schizophrenics because it's an old tranquilizer. It's a psych med, but they don't even use that no more. And it's an antipsychotic. And it's supposed to, calm it. But anyway, they have him on the maximum dosage of that. They start him on lithium. That made him gain weight. And he has to take Ojibin because of all the terrible side effects. His eyes roll up in his head and stuff if he don't take it. But it looked like, and like I said, look for the videotape. I have a YouTube channel, but I also think I got it on some of the Facebook pages. Not the audio tape page, but the other two I think I might have it on. But his hair was matted. It needed to be cut. It was matted and dirty. His lips were just dry. I mean, it just looked like he hadn't drunk any kind of water. And I had bought a drink and some food for him because my son likes for me to, like when I would visit him over at the state facility, I always bring him dinner or, something to eat and stuff. So and he liked Long John Silver, so I bought him a drink, and I gave that, and that one of those pictures you can see him, well, in all the pictures you can see him holding that drink. And then it was like July the 8th, so it was summertime. They had dirty sweatshirt, long sleeve sweatshirt on him. He had sweatpants on, and they were where I had bought him like maybe a year ago, because I would always bring him sets of clothes when he was at the state facilities. I got pictures of all of it. I got them signing in for him. And then they refused to sign in for him because I would say, why isn't my son wearing these brand new clothes that I bought him? So they stopped signing in for him, so I signed it. Like I said, I got proof and evidence of all this stuff. But remember, they're in denial, because a person in denial cannot acknowledge the truth, even though it is true. So he had on the black and red shoes that I bought him. And like I said, you could just tell. The glasses that I had bought him, he didn't have those no more. He had on like those old, those kind of glasses that, like when you're on Medicaid, you have to buy. And they got him in a place in a terrible neighborhood. It's so, and the state of Ohio owns it. But it's so terrible, they had to put a black metal gate around it. And it's a little old tiny little townhome. Like when you walk in the front door, 10 steps later, you're walking out the back door. And it's surrounded by alleys and everything. And that's why I said, and this Flyer, Aaron Surfer, is getting his SSI money every month while he lives in poverty, you know. And, I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. But, you know, she's directly exploiting him for money while she lets other people abuse and neglect him. But I have an audio tape page, like I mentioned, and I'm putting recordings of, because I recorded them, because I'm an evidence girl. That's why I like to do it. And I got recordings of my son. Ain't nobody can say he didn't live this. And I've lived it with him, because I've been there. I've been there to see and comfort my son, and I had to hear and see how he's been abused and neglected. I've seen new injuries on him. I've, you know, heard him tell me about, you know, people punching him and assaulting him, both staff and residents. I've seen unexplained scars. I've been there. I've lived it with my son. And I've captured it too. And I got the Facebook pages to prove it. And it ain't all the evidence I have. But I will have to go in there and, you know, see my son, knowing that he's being abused and neglected. And he would never be able to keep all the clothes, like 95% of the clothes that I brought up there, brand new clothes. I never seen them on him. And they didn't give them to me. But they were stolen, you know. And that's why I said, ain't none of the slimy, evil lawyers that they got in that system can take me on and my evidence. Not none of them. Nobody's going to send me a letter and say, you cease and desist, you're slandering us. Because it's all true. And they can see how I do it. Because the pages are out there for the whole world to see, including them. But I filed because I contacted everybody, but I filed a complaint with the Ohio Supreme Court Disciplinary Council, Office of Disciplinary Council. And they're supposed to be, you know, I guess the watchdog for Ohio attorneys. And they call it a grievance. It was 24 pages. I told them about Aaron Sanford, the way that she was doing my son, and that she also lied on me, which is supposed to be a no-no. If you go to their website, they'll say, oh, we don't tolerate, no lawyer can lie to the court or a client. So, in this 24-page grievance, I told them about how she, you know, wouldn't allow my son to see his own mother, you know, a loving, supportive, professional mother. I haven't abused or neglected my son like they have. And so I told them about that and how she had turned her head while she allowed other people to abuse and neglected him. And I also told them about her lying on me. I also sent evidence. So there's documents to support this. Don't you know? And I'm not surprised that all these people are rotten. You know, they're all corrupt. And like I said, now, Bible, if God says injustice exists, it exists. And that means somebody on earth is doing it. And it's these rotten people that work in the legal system, in the court system, judges and lawyers, magistrates, you know, like I said before, investigators, you name it, clerk, secretaries, you know, all these people are rotten. And that's why it's so bad. But God is very angry with injustice. It's just as big a sin as anything else. I got this letter back from, I guess, the person that's supposed to investigate it. Now, this is how these people do. They said, we don't have no jurisdiction about what's going on with your son. That's probate court. And that was it. They didn't say nothing about, or they didn't even give me a response about her lying on me. They just ignore that. Because, see, they're supposed to yank your license when you do that. And she lied on me 3 times to the court. That, like I said earlier, I can prove that she lied. Because that's all they ever done is slander me. Like no tomorrow. But they have lied on Marquise too. They'll mislabel him. They lie on him. They try to, the fantasy of breaking the black family up. They try to, you know, make it look like that we're dysfunctional. Like, you know, the fantasy. She escalates her son and stuff. And I'm going like, but when he has meltdowns and the other, there's white, you know, individuals with autism have meltdowns that live with their parents. And they have meltdowns. Are they blaming, you know? So I can figure all that stuff out, you know. And like I said, I don't care who's in denial about it, because this country's in denial about a lot of things, you know. And so they'll lie on him too. But I've been slandered like no tomorrow. Just like no tomorrow. Why they continue to abuse, neglect, and exploit my son. And I'll send people, you know, like if I have to, like it's all on my pages. Just to prove it. It ain't all the evidence I got. So that's what happened with that. And then like 2 months before that, it was in September of 2016, I filed a complaint with probate court, who actually is just as corrupt as it could be. From dishonorable Judge Robert Montgomery on down. And he appointed Sanford. And I filed a complaint, you know, that my son wasn't allowed to see his mother, which is not good for his well-being. A loving, supportive, professional mother. Not a mother that has abused and neglected him. You know, just because I'm black and I'm speaking out about and challenging the system doesn't mean I'm abusing my son. Being an outspoken advocate and not being afraid of the system is not, again, abusing and neglecting your son. And it's like, well, how dare you, you know, because some of it's retaliation too, you know. And I said, I hope they ain't trying to retaliate against me, because you don't want to, because God is in the ring with me and Marquise. We're not in this thing by ourselves. And they'll find themselves trying to outbox God. And you don't want to outbox God. You can't outbox God. And you don't want him angry with you. Because the guardian ad litem that probate court had appointed, yeah, they appointed guardian ad litem. They were trying to make this into a bad parenting case or something, you know. He was gone within a year of talking to me on the phone. The Lord let me know that this man was actually deceased. And I'll never forget it, because when I was talking to him, it was like a hot, burning anger. But it wasn't from me. It wasn't towards me during our conversation. And we wasn't arguing. I was very civil with the man because I wanted to talk to him. Since I had to deal with him being appointed the guardian ad litem, I was talking to him about my son. But there was just like a burning anger. I'll never forget it. And then within a year, the Lord turned me around in Walmart and made me get a newspaper, because I don't subscribe to newspaper. I walked past the table, the Lord spun me around and made me get the paper. I don't even read all of the paper, but he made me go to the obituaries, and there was his name at the top of the list. Lord said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. But, you know, I hope they don't think they're going to try to retaliate against me, because if God wants Marquise back home, he come back home. And you don't want God, because God sometimes will just move people out of the way, but sometimes he'll take your light out, like he did Belinky. Just took him off the planet. Because this man bragged. He was very, very evil, but he thought he was unstoppable and all powerful. I got that on audio tape. I got the recording. Because when he talked to me on the phone, I was recording him. And I said, bad enough if you're corrupt, but to brag about it. Because he was bragging that he abuses people in court because he has a big mouth. And, but, you know, I said, and God hates arrogance and pride. He doesn't like pride. So when you got people, you know, bragging and thinking they're all powerful, and then he said it was a phenomenal, it's all on tape, promise. He said it was a phenomenal that he had 10,000 hours because probate court appointed him so much. I'm going for like phenomenal. I said, oh, nobody's a phenomenal except for God. And that might be even a little bit too mild of a word. But this man thought he was like a human God. So not only was he corrupt and evil, he was also arrogant. And God hates arrogance. But the Lord let me know. And he said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. So the first time that I went ahead and filed a complaint with probate court about Sanford, like I said, was back in, September 2016. And it turned out like I thought it would. You know, they were in denial about Marquise being abused, neglected, and exploited. And they went ahead and slandered me like no tomorrow. Even the DD staff slandered me. They lied on Marquise and said, because July the 8th, when I waited outside and I seen him, he was so happy to see me. I was sitting in my car. He said, there's my mom. Don't you know, some old overweight, little short white lady took my son across the street and manipulated him. It's on videotape. And I tried to get him to go off on me and told Marquise to ask me what I came there for. And remember now, when he first seen me, he happily said, there's my mom. He has never asked me nothing like that. But she wanted him to go off on me. But they lied and said he ran across the street when he first seen me. He did not run across the street. And they said, well, he ran across the street and could have got hit and stuff. So they lied on Marquise then. Then they took him across the street and told him to tell me that. And then sent him off across the street by himself to manipulate him and try to make him go off on me. And then when he didn't, because she, you know, didn't go across the street with him. She sent him by herself. And when she seen it didn't work, the dirty trick didn't work, then she brought her butt back over across the street. All on tape. Her name is Rosie. So her butt is on that tape, being shown for the scum that she is. And like I said, you know, all these people. I said, because anytime you're going to misuse and abuse helpless people, you're the lowest of the low. I don't care if it's a child, somebody developmentally disabled, somebody that can't advocate for themselves or help themselves. You're scum. I don't care if you got money. I don't care what position you in. You're scum to me. Simple as that. You're the lowest of the low. And even the Bible talks about people like that. You can find it in the book of Proverbs, chapter 30. And I think is verse 14. Today's English version, or the Good News Bible. Quote, there are people who take cruel advantage of the needy and poor. That is the way they make their living. Unquote. And that's what these people do. They make money off of people that need their help. You got these agencies and these supposedly laws to be able to help people that need that help. And you got people taking advantage of them and abusing them and neglecting them and exploiting them for federal funds and money. It's disgraceful. And then they think they're better than somebody. That's all them people scum to me. You know, the judges, Aaron Sanford, all of them. Just pure scum. I don't care that they got a white-collar professional job. I could care less. Or how much money they make. I'm looking at what they do. But anyway, so I filed this first complaint, because I haven't filed anymore, but I filed it back with the probate court, February 2016. No, September 2016. Because February 2017 is when I filed with the Ohio Supreme Court Office of Disciplinary Counsel. And I told you what the result was with that. So in September 2016, I went ahead and filed a complaint about Sanford. And like I said, it came back with denial, slander, lies about Marquise, and that was the end. We ain't gonna do that. But I think these idiots are afraid to let me see Marquise because they ain't no telling what kind of shape he's in. But then I don't like to think that because I don't want to deny God's control and power over the situation. Because they don't limit God's power. Now they're stopping me from seeing my son, but they can't limit God's power. And Jesus told me that. He said, because if I want to, I'm with your son. And anything I want to do with him, they ain't going to limit my power. And you just have to remember that. But I think, because remember, they don't have to tell me anything now that I'm no longer his guardian, They like to grab that guardianship away from an outspoken parent like me because they don't have to tell you nothing. They don't have to deal with you. They know she don't care nothing about him. What if she don't care that the staff has been, because she ain't been caring, because she knows my son's been abused and neglected, because I told her and I told her where she could find the evidence. I made it easy for her. I said, you can go right on the Facebook and see it. You can see it like the whole world can see it. But she don't care. That's not their child. I said, but they're going to understand that I'm a victim in this thing as a mother. I said, but I sure love my baby just like any other parent does. And so that was the result of that. He doing fine and stuff, in denial, can't acknowledge the truth. And what makes these people so bad is that they're in positions where they supposed to be ethical and follow the law. I said, ain't nothing worse than a lying lawyer. I said, of all the professions to be a liar, a lying lawyer, And I said, I wonder if these people know that they're offending God, because when David Balicki was talking to me on the phone, I said, listen to this man. Does he know that he's offending God? The pride, the corruption, and because he told me, and he's supposed to have been so smart, the guardian ad litem, appointed by probate court. He said he might be autistic. I said, huh? Might be autistic. Talking about my son. But he lied because we were supposed to be getting a meeting together with the incompetent, corrupt state psychiatrist that they had working over there. I forgot his name. But I got all the records, That's because it's just an army full of scum. An army full of corrupt, government workers that, like Proverbs 30:14 says. And they're going to have to answer to Jesus for that. Because Jesus, clearly teaches that he's going to ask people or say to people, they're going to ask him, when did we not feed you when you were hungry, or come to visit you when you were in prison, or clothe you when you were naked? And he said, when you didn't do it to the least of this burden, you didn't do it to me. Face to face. And so what does the least of the burden mean? It means somebody that, for some reason, they can't really advocate for themselves or take care of themselves. Physically or mentally or emotionally. And you're going to mistreat them and abuse them and neglect them for money and turn your head while other people do it. Jesus said, then you done it to me. And there's people that go to church every Sunday, call themselves Christians, and they are in jobs like that. Or turn their head while other people that they work with do it. And then you wonder why people won't get left behind on Rapture Day. They're racism too. So-called Christians. I don't care about other religions. I'm talking about the true relationship that you have with God, the so that you could be saved. You can't hate people and expect to go to heaven. And God talks about that. 1 John, not Gospel of John. 1 John. God said, how can you say you love me who you have not seen, and you hate your brother who you have seen? Parable of the Good Samaritan. When Jesus told the guy, well, who was a neighbor to him? You go and do likewise. You cannot hate people, a whole race of people, or groups of people, expect to go to heaven. So anyway, let me get to this because I won't be able to tape over 60 minutes. May the 15th of this year, because Marquise hasn't been allowed to call me since May the 13th, 2017. So I haven't heard from him over a year. Of course, I love him. I think about him every single day. It's Jesus is my anchor to hold on, because as a mother, you know, I'm a victim in this thing too. I'm not going to walk away from my son. I'm not going to give up on God, because I know God has a final say in this situation. And he has told me, pray for your enemies. He said, because you got it on Facebook, but when I blow this thing open, I'll blow it open. So, you know, I have to remember that, you know, that God is in this ring with me and Marquise. Matter of fact, me and Marquise is in the corner. He's in the ring. And these people don't want God angry with them. But God will use people that other people count out. Like my son, he ain't nothing to him except for a cash cow. There's another name on the thing so they can get the federal funds from HHS and whoever else, you know. Sanford, he's just another so-called ward that she can get how much money the SSI is, what, over $800, so she can get the extra $800 every month. That's all he is. But his life ain't nothing to him. He's a black male, he's disabled, so he's nothing but a cash cow to them. And that's why I said when people talk about Black Lives Matter, I kind of understand that title. Because it doesn't look like their lives matter when they're being shot, or when being shot down, and, you know, but when people don't think you're worth anything, this is my feelings on it. When people don't think you're worth anything, they're going to treat you like you're not worth anything. Your life ain't worth nothing. Your rights ain't worth nothing. You know. So if they don't think you're subhuman or 3/5 of a human being, they're going to treat you like that. It's been like that in this country since 1776. And that's why I said, you know, I might be wrong about this, but I don't think the United States is even in further biblical prophecy. Or if they are still in existence, they're not relevant. And I'm talking about battles of the wars of Magog and Gog, where, you know, Russia's definitely there, you know, some other countries, you know, centered around Israel and stuff. But I don't think the United States is even around. Because it's been so wicked and hypocritical. And God we trust and all this kind of stuff. And then you have all these things that God tells you not to do that you're doing. But let me get back to this, because I keep, you know, I'm a Christian, so I, you know, don't mind talking about God and His Word, but I'm not going to give up on God, because I know God has complete control over everything, and that He is a just God, because what you want to deny happening, God sees. He sees suffering. He knows the truth. But He's a just God. He will punish sin, and He will take care of His people. Anybody that trusts and believes, you know, in Him and in His Son Jesus, He will take care of us. But God will use people that other people count out. And He'll put people's lives out. He's done it to nations. He's done it to governments. He's done it to individuals. Sometimes He just moves you over. But his will would be done. We can make all the plans. They can make all the plans they want to with my son, but God's will is going to be done. Just like in everything else. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But you got to be careful when you mess with a believer or a Christian, because we're taught to stand back and let God fight our battles, and he doesn't lose any battles. We're taught to stand still and know that he's God. But God has his own way and his own time when he does things. And they're better than our ways and times. And, of course, they're not going to always be our timing and our ways. But if he wants my son back home, he's coming back home. And you don't want, these people don't want to try to find themselves where they're trying to outbox God, where he's so angry, you know. He can harden hearts and everything else. But I don't believe that's what he wants for my son, for him to live out the rest of his life being abused and neglected and exploited and not be able to see his mother. Or me as a mother, not to ever see my child again. I just don't believe that. Because God has a destiny for him and for me. But to wrap this up, I went ahead, like I said, excuse me, and I went ahead and filed a motion with corrupt probate court of Franklin County, Ohio, May 15, 2018, to be reappointed his guardian. I put in there, I'm a professional nurse, loving, supported, you know, been an outspoken advocate, have evidence to prove that my son has been abused and neglected by many people. I've told him that he hasn't been allowed to see his own mother in over 3 years, you know. I just got the thing back. I'm not surprised. They're going to not even have a hearing about the motion. They're going to go ahead and treat it as a complaint. And it said that they're going to send it to an investigator. So we know how that's going to turn out. It's going to turn out like the last time I filed a complaint back in September 2016. They'll slander me. They'll be in denial about my son being abused, neglected, exploited, and they'll lie on him. Said that she should have never filed a motion. She was a former guardian. Yeah, I should still be his guardian. You should have never taken that guardian away, but oh, silly me, I forgot. When you got a black mother that's outspoken and dares to challenge the system and to speak out about abuse and neglect and not stay quiet and hang her head and go in silent mode about you mistreating my son, oh yeah, you need to get the guardianship away from a mother like that. But it should have never been taken away from me in the first place. Not just like, you know, this separation thing. You don't never do that unless, and I'm all, like I said, I'm a mandatory reporter. I'm RN. So if there's some dysfunction or some way that that child's being harmed, you know, from the many different abuse or, you know, because there's a lot of different ways you can abuse or neglect a child, then yeah. But I ain't never abused and neglected my son because I love him too darn much. I ain't abusing and neglecting like they are. But just because I'm not going to hang my head down and keep silent about what they're doing to my son, they don't want me to see him. They don't even want him talking to me. So the only way they could try to justify that is with the malicious fantasy of she escalates her son. So I said, well, I'm going to get the audio tape page and people can hear how Marquise feels about his mother. You don't need to, that scum doesn't need to talk for my son. But you ain't going to find corrupt people that are honest. All they do is lie. They lie about everything. And then they deny the truth. I said, because you ain't going to hear Marquise on these tapes saying, Mom, get out of here, or I hate you. But he's begging me to take him home. He tells me how much he misses me and loves me. That's what's so heartbreaking about that. The last time I seen him in July, or July the 8th, 2015, and he told me, I miss you a long time, and Mom, you know, I love you, and come back, I want to see your face, and stuff like that. You know, the same thing that any child does when they don't want to be separated from their mother or their father. And they love them, you know. So check that videotape out. It's heartbreaking. And, you know, it makes me get kind of, you know. And the audio tapes, I'm all the way, I got all the way to the last time I talked to Marquise, which was in 2017, and I'm still in 2012. So I got many, many, many more to upload. And when I go through them, it just tears my heart apart because I'm reliving it. I'm listening to all the pain, you know, that my son is in. Because my back hurt, you know, you tell me his back hurt after they restrained him, after they hit him in his back. The physical pain, the emotional pain, the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the physical neglect, you know, the medical neglect, you know. And I forgot that my son even had told me that they had put music in his ear, the staff, who hated my guts. Because ain't none of them liked me coming around there to see all the abuse and neglect, you know, all the how dirty and filthy the place was. So, you know, when you like that, they don't want you around. But I listened to these tapes, and, you know, I have forgotten some things. And one thing that he told me that I've forgotten, he said the staff actually took nasty music and actually put it in his ear to try to make him ejaculate. And I know my son ain't lying, because I ain't never said the word ejaculate to him, and nobody else has. So how do you learn the word ejaculate? But he would tell me all kind of stuff. It's all on tape. You know, how he's been abused, who's been hit him. On December 1st, 2012, I actually seen a thug hit my son in the chest. And I'm a Christian. God does supernatural things. And you'll hear the boy denying that he hit my son, but he missed to grabbing his shirt, which is still assault and abuse. When you grab somebody's shirt, that's still assault. But he wasn't going to admit to him punching my son in the chest. But you can hear him denying it. You can hear me confronting him and say, oh, you hit him in the chest. You can hear my son screaming, hollering and yelling, Mommy hit me, and calling for me to rescue him, because he walked up to him and punched him in the chest, grabbed him by the shirt, threw him in a van. And my son was, it's on audio tape. You can hear it all. That happened December 1st, 2012 at the State of Ohio Columbus Developmental Center. When I reported it, I tried to get Ohio Highway Patrol to file a complaint. After they talked to the state or Columbus Developmental Center people, they wouldn't even file a complaint. Corruption, ignoring it, in denial, not going to do nothing about it. And that's the way it's been all these years. Nobody's been ethical. You know, they all have denied it. And I had placed it at the cross of Jesus. And I said, you know, because God will use people. Sometimes he gets so, you know, angry at the evil, he'll just pick out who he wants to use to put it down. Because this is a situation that only God can, first, nothing's impossible to him. He could do any and all things anytime he wants to, anyhow that he wants to. But there are certain situations that only God can put down, handle. Because you got an army. This is a system, a very corrupt, unjust system, the kind of system he talks about in the Bible that, you know, that are taking people's rights away, innocent people, take bribes. They're in denial about injustice. And God is angry with it. Because I read about it in the Bible. I read what God has said about injustice, you know, through his prophets, or, you know, I've read it. So it exists, and that's who's doing it. The kind of scum that me and Marquise have in our lives. So, that's what they said. They're going to go ahead and do an investigation. Which means, and that's their investigation. They have no intentions of finding fault. They're not going to admit that my son's being abused and neglected and exploited. They'll do their investigation just to say that they did an investigation. It'll be a corrupt investigation. It'll be an unjust investigation. That's what it's going to be. But they're doing it. Just like with the federal government. When I write them, they will always kick it back to the state, a state agency, which is not a good idea if that state government, one of their agencies, is actually the perpetrator, or they're actually, one of the entities, or, even a state agent or a state employee is one of the people that are doing this. I said, you're going to let the state of Ohio police themselves? John Kasich, the governor, the attorney general, Mike DeWine, that Peggy Martin and John Martin, the Ohio Department of Developmental Disability, and Franklin County Board of DD, they slander me like no tomorrow. And hate Marquise and slander him. But they ain't nothing but trash over there. From the whatever the director called all the way down to the incompetent, ignorant, whatever they call them, SSAs and stuff. Then you got consumer support services, and I got them on tape. Hollering at my son. I've heard them physically abuse and verbally abuse my son. I got that on tape. Got Marquise on tape telling me how one boy pulled his arm when he wouldn't get out of bed. I think a boy choked him. I think another boy pulled his arm when he wouldn't take his medications. But I think a boy pulled his arm when he didn't get out of bed. He told me and was crying that the staff was hollering at him when he accidentally, the water overflowed accidentally in the bathtub. I heard them tell him and yell at him to get off the phone, and then, like I said, they grabbed the phone from me. So I called the police because I said, well, they could be beating my son now. I said, they just grabbed the phone from me. Police said, why would they be upset? Because he's talking to his mother. But Marquise could tell me things. There's hundreds of incidences of abuse and neglect. And then Michael Snow, then I got to get ready and get off of here because it's almost 60 minutes, tried to say my son was trying to get his staff in trouble, which shows how ignorant he was. Because he was the superintendent of Columbus Developmental Center when my son was over there. And I said, huh? I said, because my son don't sit around trying to get people in trouble. Most developmentally disabled people don't. But that's what he said, that he tried to get his staff in trouble. So that's where that went, when I would tell him about the abuses and neglect that was happening to my son. And like I said, I can come over there and see. I can see that he's being abused and neglected with my own eyes, But anyway, so where's the outrage for the American families that are being separated or have been separated? And the parents are innocent. There's no abuse or neglect there. There's no dysfunction. Where's the outrage for them? And please share. Look in the comment section and you will see the links to the 3 Facebook pages. The justice page, the abuse and neglect page. Please go from the very beginning. Because I don't have no recent pictures. Because they have not allowed me to see him in over 3 years. And I don't have no recordings since the last time my son was allowed to call me. And if he doesn't call me, it's not because he doesn't want to. It's because he hasn't been allowed to call me. But I love him. I think about him every single day. I'm going to let the Lord use me for a situation like this. Because he knows how to get things rolling. And just, God is there for us. Jesus is Lord. For all those that are suffering, give it to the Lord. Give your life to Jesus. Give it to the God. And let him handle the situation. Because this is already handled. His way and his time. Marquise, I love you. I miss you. I think about you every single day. You got a mom that loves you. And more importantly, you got God who loves you. He hasn't abandoned you. And neither have I. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.